This is the journey, man. This is the journey. I think that like a lot of times we want a microwave to put people in, hit 2 minutes and it's done. Or we want another self-help book, or we want a book that tells us what we can do to fix people. But man, it's a journey. Like Jesus took every step with his disciples for 3 years. So for me, I think that it's no different than the way that I am with my kids. I'm going to raise you. I'm going to walk with you. And when you make mistakes, I'm not going to kick you out to the streets, but I am going to tell you that it's not your true identity. And I think that a big part of that is like our two cores, our main cores when we minister to people on the streets. I say minister to people on the streets, but honestly, the more that I'm here in Brazil on the streets, the more I realize I don't minister any differently in churches. It's really the same value, and that is identity and value. The more that you understand your true identity, the more you understand what you're actually repenting from. So what is repentance? Repentance isn't an admission of sin. That's what we've made it. Oh, I did that, I'm sorry. I looked at pornography, please forgive me. I was a prostitute, please forgive me. I messed around with drugs, forgive me. That's an admission of sin, but it's not repentance, because repentance is a change of mentality. So repentance is actually an admission of a false identity. Repentance is when you come to the place where you realize, actually, that's not who I am. Not only did I do drugs, but I am not a drug addict. It's not my identity. So the more that you begin to know who Christ is, the more that you begin to know who you are in him, the more you can separate that behavior from the identity. And the more for me as a leader, as a minister, it gives me the ability to constantly speak to that identity and separate the two. This is not who you are. So like you said, the first night on the streets, you can't do that. You can't walk up and just be like, prostitution's sin and you're not a prostitute. But you can come up and speak to that identity and begin to plant those seeds of true identity. The more you build relationship with them, you get to a point, like we've gotten to a point with every one of these girls after a few times of talking to them, where you look them in the eye and you say, you are better than this. This is not the life that God has for you, and I think you know it. Deep down inside, I think you know that you're better than this. It's not your identity. It's not who you are. So the first step is getting them to get to that point themselves where they separate the two and say, this is not who I am. And then it's just the journey. It's walking with them, and it's helping them along the way. It's like there is no fast thing for this. I mean, certainly God can do it sovereignly, and we have seen that where God touches people and their lives are changed. But even with those people, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden they live a perfect life and there's no struggle. And that's why to us, like a big part of what we do is that one-on-one relationship, that counsel, having people that are going to walk through life with them to really help them, that when they fall, it's like, hey, you can get back up. You're going to be okay. Let's overcome this. Let's talk about that. What led to that thing, and to identify what is sin and what isn't, because some of these people, they really don't know. Because if you're a child that was sexually abused when you're 8 years old, and then you just kind of lead into the life of prostitution, what's the sin in your life? You know what I mean? It was done to you. So you put that on them the whole time. But you inevitably come to a point where you have to also deal with the fact that they did make a decision. They were abused, but they also made a decision. So it's really just a journey, and it's a process. And I always say to our staff, embrace the process. Embrace the journey. Go for it. Because to me, that's the best part. It's like, you know, when we look at our belief in Jesus, I think we claim too much the birth and the death and not the stuff in between. If you even look at the creeds that we say in churches, it's like, you know, I believe in Jesus Christ, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, buried, raised again. What happened to everything in between? But if that was God's plan, he could have literally sent Jesus 3 days before the crucifixion. He could have walked through that process. He died, raised again, that's it. But he didn't, because he came to show us a journey. He came to show us a step-by-step life with the Father, and as leaders, as ministers, to show us how we walk others through that same process.